Apple reported quarterly financial results after the stock markets closed today, and the performance, while the current quarter was not what investors were hoping for, the company gave forecast for the quarter coming ahead that really pleased stock market investors, and that's what's creating the share price increase in the aftermarket hours. In this video, I'll review what Apple reported and discuss what they forecasted for the upcoming quarter and update my buy, hold, or sell rating on Apple stock today.
I want to thank The Motley Fool for sponsoring this video. Visit fool.com/Parkev for the 10 best stocks to buy now.
So for the quarter that ended September 27th, 2025, total net sales increased to $102.5 billion for Apple. That was up from $95 billion in the same quarter last year. More importantly, the company's gross margin increased to $48.3 billion, up from $43.9 billion in the same quarter last year. The company during the conference call highlighted that they were hurt by over $1 billion in cost associated with tariffs, but Apple CEO Tim Cook is a masterful negotiator, dealing with the situation absolutely masterfully. In a statement during the conference call, the CEO said that Apple is not increasing their prices as a result of tariffs. They're keeping their prices the same and absorbing the higher cost associated with tariffs. This is precisely what President Donald Trump wants to hear, and it's precisely what Apple's CEO Tim Cook is saying publicly out loud for everyone to hear. I'm telling you, this CEO is an absolute master at dealing with these situations, not just in dealing with the US government, but also dealing with the government in China and India, where the company has significant manufacturing going on. Remember, Apple still manufactures nearly all of its products outside of the United States in China and now more so in India. And while Apple has been able to negotiate favorable terms and exemptions for many of its products, it's due to the fact of the CEO's masterful negotiating, dealing with the situation absolutely with absolute craft and skill. The company's operating income jumped to $32.4 billion. That was up from $29.6 billion in the same quarter last year. So Apple's quarter was solid, to be sure. It's generating revenue growth again, and that revenue growth is accelerating. The company during the conference call following this earnings release said that they expect at least 10% revenue growth in the upcoming quarter, perhaps even as high as 12% revenue growth, as the new generation of iPhones, the iPhone 17, is off to a great start. Remember, this quarter, which you're seeing here, is the quarter which ended on September 27th. There was only roughly 1 week of iPhone 17 sales that are accounted for in these results. So you're going to see the bulk of the benefits of the new iPhone lineup in the upcoming quarter, and that's what Apple stock investors are most enthusiastic about. So a few headwinds to note, and then the response from Apple's management. First of all, Greater China sales declined to $14.5 billion, down from $15 billion in the same quarter last year. This has been a concern. The increasing geopolitical tension is causing Apple sales in Greater China to struggle. But the management team during the conference call said that this segment will likely return to growth in the upcoming quarter as the next generation of iPhones are selling well in Greater China. A few weeks ago, if you recall, I produced that video that showcased that iPhone sales are up double digits in Greater China, and so that's going to be reflected in the upcoming earnings release. So the company will likely return to growth in Greater China, which is something that investors are looking at because this is a great opportunity for Apple, even though right now it's a relatively small part of its business, $14.5 billion out of a total $102 billion. The economy in China is expected to grow much quicker than most of the economies where Apple operates. And so it's an opportunity for Apple to gain significantly. The growth opportunity is large in a population with over 1 billion individuals and a growing middle class. The good news, iPhone sales, even not including the bulk of the update, are already increasing. $49 billion in iPhone sales compared to $46.2 billion in the same quarter last year. In the previous 12 months, Apple has sold $210 billion worth of iPhones. That's up from $208 $1 billion in the same 12-month period the prior year. The iPhone is arguably the best product in all of history in terms of total sales and customer adoption and profitability. It's a I can't underestimate or overestimate the success of the iPhone and what it has created for Apple and its investors and shareholders. And in the upcoming quarter, we're going to see even more growth in the iPhone segment. And this is critical for Apple because it's a way for consumers to enter Apple's ecosystem. And Apple's ecosystem is one of the best in the world, and it's created great competitive advantages because it increases the cost of switching. Once you're in the Apple ecosystem, it's inconvenient for you to switch and go out of the ecosystem because you customize all of these products together. And if then you want to switch, it becomes incredibly inconvenient. And you say to yourself, whatever, I'll just pay a little bit extra for the iPhone upgrade. I know there are other phones out there that cost less money and offer better tech, but it's going to cause a whole bunch of headaches for me to switch my entire electronic system over to a new provider. And so you just stick around with Apple, and Apple counts on that. And that's one of the reasons why sales of iPhone are so critically important. Another important category is the services segment, which is still growing nicely, up to 28.7 billion, up from 25 billion in the same quarter last year. Remember, every $1 in services sales is double the gross profit margin compared to $1 in product sales. So Apple profits more when you subscribe to Apple Music compared to when they sell you an iPhone, on a percentage basis, that is, not in total. So every $1 in services sales generates roughly 70% gross profit margin, whereas product sales generate roughly 35% in gross profit margin. But the thing is, you're probably not going to subscribe to Apple Music unless you have an Apple iPhone. And so that's what makes this ecosystem so valuable for investors. So in the previous 12-month period, Apple's cash flow from operations decreased to 111.5 billion, down from 118.3 billion. And it's a little bit concerning to see its accounts receivable increase by so much, from 3.8 billion to 6.7 billion. Now, it's a one-off thing. It would be concerning if we see this trend continue. It could be Apple having to give more favorable terms in order to generate these sales. It could be telling its buyers, large distribution channels, that they can take longer before paying them back. And of course, if you're giving those more favorable terms, they would be more interested in purchasing. So what do I think about Apple stock? I still think it's slightly overvalued. Its market price at 271, and it's going to be higher when it opens tomorrow, in my opinion, is above the $215 intrinsic value I calculated. And while the business is improving, I still wouldn't rate this business as a buy given the current market prices compared to the macroeconomic forces, geopolitical tensions, and the lack of development in artificial intelligence from Apple. While the company is improving, I would reiterate my hold rating for Apple at the current market prices. By the way, did you know about our exciting channel membership program? You get so much for less than $5 a month, including dozens of exclusive videos, access to exclusive research on over 100 stocks, and early access to many of my videos before everyone else sees them. Click that join button below to learn what this program is all about.